Boshan, welcome on back, everybody. It is your boy SoTeeko, and we are back on the channel. Today, we need to talk about Andor again. I know it's been a very talked about topic, but I just want to give my thoughts, So, today we are going to discuss not just Andor, but Star Wars, as it is, of course, Star Wars' birthday, as well as it's my late father's birthday. Rest in peace. Star Wars came out 48 years ago on this day, A New Hope, May 25th, 1977, and changed my life 20 years before I was even born, And about 27 years after the beauty of A New Hope, we were blessed with Andor. Hello one and all, welcome on back to another video. My name is Trevor and I love Star Wars, specifically Andor. The show is absolutely amazing, From day one, it had such a strong predisposition to succeed. The vast majority of the fan base was in the midst of The Last Jedi outrage and did not want the show at all. I've gone through, looked at Reddit posts, I've looked at what people were saying on Twitter. The genuine and general consensus was, why is this nobody bland character getting a spin-off show? And there was maybe one or two people on the Reddit posts that I saw that said that they were genuinely excited. I want to also preface, when season 1 came out and the first episode hit and the second episode hit and the third episode hit and the fourth episode hit and the fifth episode hit and the sixth episode hit, nobody had anything good to say about Andor. I just want that to be clear. I just want that to be where we start this off from, right? I've been singing Andor's praises since day one. I'm not trying to gatekeep. I'm not trying to be cynical or anything. I just want to paint the picture of what this show has been through. And to show off this strong predisposition to fail. Think back to when this show was announced. It was sandwiched between fan fatigue, franchise misfires, and really, when you think about it, one of the most toxic online atmospheres that Star Wars had since the forum days of the prequels. You were on one side of the boat lying about it, or on the other side of the boat really upset because the show got announced in 2018. Coming off of that, we just had The Last Jedi, which bastardized everyone's favorite characters and kind of just made a mockery of what Star Wars was to that point. It kind of made a mockery of the real life passing of Carrie Fisher, made a mockery of Luke Skywalker as a character, and really sent what was a genuinely fine start to the trilogy completely off rails and completely sideswiped it, because there were two big questions. I'd say even three big questions coming out of The Force Awakens, thinking back about it. Is Finn going to be a Jedi? The Stormtrooper to Jedi trope was something that we all wanted to see. Who are Rey's parents? And lastly, who the hell is Snoke? And we got all three of those questions answered by Go F Yourself, Go F Yourself, and a side order of Go F Yourself. Which, I don't know about you guys, but it kind of put a really sour taste in my mind. And it really put a really sour taste in my mouth as well. I didn't even like the popcorn at the movies. It was a dope picture, but the story sucked. And everyone's justification for it is, oh, well, it had the best choreography since Duel of the Fates. It was the most visually pleasing movie. It had the best score. Sure. But none of that has anything to do with the story, apart from the score. Because John Williams cooked. But the story was just absolutely butters. And that's where we were when the show was announced. Culturally, politically, to say that the fandom was divided would be a freaking understatement. But one thing that almost everybody was saying is that nobody wanted a prequel to a prequel. There wasn't a single person. I'm not going to speak in such generalizations like that, but the general consensus was that no one wanted Andor. We were in the midst of the sequel wars. And no matter what side that you were on, when Andor was revealed, most people just shrugged. People didn't want the show. And this was 2018, so 4 years later, it gets released. And when it gets released, honestly, there was an overall level of misunderstanding and perhaps absorption of what people were actually witnessing. During season 1, nobody liked Andor. It was boring, slow, and didn't have enough Star Wars. I think there were a lot of people that said that there weren't a lot of aliens. Watch the show yourself. Like, the aliens are everywhere. I think people were upset that there were no aliens on the prison arc, which I assume, headcanon. And this is the thing, man. Like, everyone just needs everything explained to them. No one can have any deep creative thoughts for themselves, but I'd assume in a prison, it's the Empire. Empire's all about order, you know? Maybe human beings are on one floor, aliens are on another floor. Because maybe there's different protocols to locking down different species and different sized beings, you know? And on Aldhani, of course, there's not going to be many aliens. There were aliens among the witnesses of the Eye, but there weren't going to be aliens working for the Empire because realistically, the Empire didn't employ many aliens to do much front-end work. Typically, the Empire would come to an agreement with a planet or with a ruler and use them as slaves. Once they were done with them, they'd slaughter them, a la the Geonosians. So, not to put any sort of weight into what the majority of people claimed, because, you know, there's 8.2 billion perspectives in this world, and everyone has their own opinion. You know, like, for those folks that were saying it was slow, it was boring, if those folks said that grass was red and the sky was green, you wouldn't put much weight or care into the opinions of them. And I haven't, but the reason why I'm talking about this is you have to keep people accountable for what they were saying about the show that we had never seen anything like before, and I'm not sure if we will ever see anything like after. I genuinely think that this was a flash in the pan, like the rubberized glass that the king had the chemist executed, and we've never been able to replicate since. So my question today, the salient point of this video, where do we go from here after Andor? So Andor season 2 has officially wrapped, and I need to ask the question that's been hanging in the air for weeks now. Where do we go from here? Because let's be honest, Andor was, like I said, a flash in a pan. It was lightning in a bottle. It was a Star Wars story that shouldn't have worked, that nobody asked for, and yet somehow, some way, became one of the most artistically and thematically rich entries into the Star Wars saga. And we didn't expect this to happen. We have to big shout outs to Tony Gilroy, Dan Gilroy, to all the cast, all of the crew, all of the showrunners, all the people in front of the camera, behind the camera, the editors, the distributors, the marketing team, social media team, everybody who at one point had a finger on the pulse of this project. Take a bow. And I can't wait for... I've never watched an award show. Ever. Never seen an Oscars, never seen an Emmys, never seen a Tonys, never seen a BAFTA, never seen a SoTeeko award. The only award show I've ever watched were the Gungies. Shout out to my boy Egnards. But Andor, I think, genuinely challenged human beings. I think Andor made a point of slowing down, taking its time, and in that silence, in those quiet moments, it said more about rebellion, about sacrifice, about systemic oppression, about immigration, about power structure, about freedom, about the freedom of choice, the freedom to choose, the freedom of speech, than most Star Wars media says with Star Destroyers and dope John Williams trumpets and stuff. Those moments of silence, those quiet times, those interloping scenes that we got, that we saw these characters that we had seen how they end and how they begin, and we're seeing the gusto, the meat. They're slitting their wrist, they're showing you their blood. It is red just like ours. What we got was something that we had never seen before in the galaxy far, far away, that we've all grown with, loved, and become fans of for the past 48 years. It was not because of any sort of grandeur, right? These were normal people. It was Star Wars without the glow of a lightsaber. It was Star Wars without the Skywalker crutch. It was Star Wars where the Force wasn't some mystical power, It was the will to resist. It was the will to push forward. It was the will to rebel. It asked hard questions. What does it cost to resist? What makes a person rise up? How do you fight back when the enemy is invisible, bureaucratic, embedded in your daily life? And we had so many prime, beautiful examples of this. And I genuinely felt like Willman when Saw Gerrera's sitting there shaking his shoulders, telling him, "Wake up, boy. You're not with Luthen. You're here. You're here to fight. This is your purpose." And that was Saw telling each and every one of us what our purpose is, what we need to wake up and do. And, like, let's be real. We're talking about Saw Gerrera. This show did not paint the rebellion as glamorous. It made it real. We watched people break, compromise, sacrifice parts of themselves. We saw characters like Luthen Rael, played with Shakespearean gravity by Stellan Skarsgård, give multiple monologues that should genuinely be etched into the stone tablet of what our people pass on to the next generation. It just boggles my mind that not only does this exist, but that it was conjured up and performed so eloquently. And the theme of his very first monologue from season 1, "I burn my life to make a sunrise I know I'll never see." That's not a quote for applause. That's a confession. That is the entire soul of the show. And the cast of Andor was not just a ensemble. They were a tapestry. Cassian was not a hero. He was a survivor. He was a man that was shaped by loss. Go through his entire timeline. He lost his parents, lost his sister, he lost his adopted father, he lost his adopted mother, he lost Bix for a while, and then he lost Brasso, lost his droid, lost Kino, lost so many important people to him, and then loses Bix again. And his arc from a displaced colonialistic man as an apathetic drifter to a determined rebel leader was not some quick montage. It was earned, it was painful, it was human. Cassian Andor is the role model that I feel like we should all aspire to be as normal human beings who are not force sensitive. Because at every moment that there was a chance to choose to do better, he took it. And seeing this show start from such a brilliant exposition, you learn instantly what his purpose is within the first 10 minutes of the show. He's looking for his sister. And then all of a sudden, he's getting felt down by some corporate cops, and he commits murder. And then he's on the run. Instantly, you know what the drama is, you know what the story is, and there's no beating around the bush. There's no 41-page journey to get there. No, it was Cassian Andor, affected by every single person that we come across. Bix, Cyril, Marva, Vel, Nemik, Mon, Kino, Dedra, Luthen, Clea, like everybody. These, they weren't just characters. They were people. They were flawed. They were desperate. They were broken, grappling with political landscapes that felt genuinely too real to be fantasy. And this was Star Wars stripped of all the mysticism, of the mythological glow. It laid bare for us to study, and all of these characters had their own personal fear and their own personal, though, was crushed by the very system that he was fighting to destroy. And Kino Loy, he couldn't swim. He knew damn well what the plan was. Kino Loy knew damn well what was going to happen. He knew, damned if he do, damned if he don't. So I may as well do. And he knew that he was going to die one way or another. Is he going to die saving thousands of men? Or is he going to die being another pawn in the system? And I felt like those two were just such prime examples of what it really meant to be a rebel. Because on one hand, you have Nemik, who did everything that he could. And in the end, he was still crushed by the system that was oppressing him and holding him back his entire life. And with Kino, it just shows that you always have a choice. And the way that Andor captured that tension, those moments in between life and death, the suffocating pressures of living life where every move could be your last. It made it feel uncomfortably familiar, like looking in a mirror that we didn't really want to face. And that's the genius of it, you know? If season 1 was about awakening, about planting the seeds of resistance, then season 2 was the reckoning. This season didn't just expand the scope, it deepened its consequences. Every choice, every lie, every act of violence or defiance from season 1 really started to bear its fruit. And not all of it was sweet. You saw the Empire really clamping down and really getting serious about this stuff. And they really didn't allow you to have those moments to breathe, have those moments of feeling safe. And you see that especially on Gorman, where, you know, a lot of people are making this much more political than it is. When the Gorman massacre was, to me, a historian. It was shot for shot what I felt the Boston Massacre was. You know, it was orchestrated by the Brits. It was carried out by the Brits, and a lot of people died. They didn't need to die. Of course, in Gorman, to a much grander scale, it was the most tragic thing that I've ever seen on screen, because all of these people had faces, and we had the backstory of these people, and you see all the people caught in the crossfire, and you see Cyril Karn, who I felt was getting worked by Dedra the entire time. And early on, I felt that he was going to be a double agent, which of course he was. He was working as an agent for the Gorman front and reporting back to Dedra, but I thought he was going to be a triple agent. Report back to Dedra and then report back to the Gorman front for them. Ultimately, it turned out that Dedra was just using him and planting seeds and stuff. And man, when he died, when Cassian looks him dead in the eye and asks, "Who are you?" Not only did, you know, his life's work to that point, you know, chasing Andor, the guy that he had been after for 2 seasons now, and a guy that he was consistently fighting after. Question, like, who are you? This guy that held so much weight in Andor's mind. Sorry, Andor, who held so much weight in Cyril's mind, didn't know who he was. And also, on the flip side of that question, Cyril didn't really know who he was anymore. And that moment of hesitation where he dropped the gun, as a fan, you're like, oh shoot, Cyril's about to join up. And then instantly, he gets capped. And it was tragic, because Cyril, like, I feel like so many of us can identify with that guy, with that character, and that's what this show does beautifully. It created characters that were so easily identifiable with. And that brings us back to the topics of oppression, of systemic involvement, of immigration. All of these ideologies are things that we all deal with on the daily. And I think it was as close to something that George Lucas would love, you know, the maker, because it told these stories eloquently. It told these stories without ever taking you out of your suspension of disbelief. And ultimately, that's what entertainment is all about. And Cassian Andor, once a reluctant observer of oppression, now became a committed agent of its rebellion. Not without his scars, not without sacrificing more of himself. He's not a Jedi, and he doesn't have plot armor. He is literally just one of us, one of you and I, talking about this, listening to this video right now. That is the importance of Cassian Andor, and that is what makes every episode, every mission feel so much more tense, feels so much more earned, because there's no force to save him, only instinct and grit and the growing weight of what he's done. And to his words, he's always been lucky. And he is a person. This is a show that I feel like we can all learn a little bit more about ourselves from. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Be curious to get your guys' thoughts. But it's been your boy SoTeeko. I do appreciate each and every single one of you. And above all else, guys, make sure to stay safe. Tell your mother that you love her. And with peace, knowledge, and serenity, may the Force be with you.